Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Got a crazy case out of Florida. A bunch of people sent it to me. And it's not about Florida man. It's about Florida government. Wayne, Caleb, Grant, and Mark all sent it to me. And the story's been widely reported in a whole bunch of different places. But I'm going to go with the version by the group that is helping the man out. Federal court upholds $30,000 fines for tall grass. A man got fined $30,000 for letting the grass in his yard get too tall. And it's a $30,000 fine, and a federal court has said, yeah, that's okay with us. So J. Justin Wilson wrote the story, and in a blow to property rights on Monday, a federal judge upheld fines against Jim Ficken, a man from Dunedin, and I could be mispronouncing the name, but it's Dunedin. I looked up the pronouncers on the internet. I think it's Dunedin. But he's a property owner there. He was assessed $30,000 in fines and threatened with foreclosure because his grass in his yard got too tall. And he does not dispute that the grass in his yard got too tall. He's got an explanation as to why it happened. He's sorry it happened. He's just saying it really shouldn't be a $30,000 fine. So he's represented by the Institute for Justice, the IJ. That's who put out this press release. But I also did double check these facts elsewhere. And he plans to appeal the district court's decision. If the decision remains intact, it'll mean that local governments can impose maximum fines for petty code violations without providing notice that the fines are accruing. And that's the other issue here. It's one thing to be, told you owe some money. It's another to be told you owed a lot of money long after it's already accrued. The fines here stem from a 2-month period in the summer of 2018 while Jim was in South Carolina tending to his late mother's estate. He's 71 years old. His mother died in another state. So he says he went out of town for a few months to tend to the estate, and during that time, his grass grew to a length of longer than 10 inches. That is a code violation, which, according to city officials, constitutes a fine of $250 per day and up to $500 per day for repeat violators. Now, I actually know of some cities where if your grass gets out of control, they'll send you a notice and says, hey, your grass is out of control. And we will come cut it. And if we cut it, we're going to charge you for it. And that's the penalty. And yeah, they charge you a little bit more in the average place. So you'd be better off doing it yourself. But it would have worked here and saved this guy about, $29,500. He says, I was out of town when code enforcement officials first noticed my grass was too tall. They came back almost every day. They recorded the violation, but never notified me that I was on the hook for fines. By the time I found out, I owed them tens of thousands of dollars. Then they refused to reduce the fines, and they voted to authorize the foreclosure of my home to pay for the fines. I'm disappointed that the court sided with Dunedin, but what happened to me is wrong, and I will continue to fight. The city's behavior towards Jim is outrageous, says the Institute for Justice attorney. This ruling emboldens code enforcement departments across the state to impose crippling financial penalties, and it empowers them to do so without first notifying a property owner that they are potentially going to be fined. The district court concluded that the city was not required to provide advanced notice to Jim that he was subject to fines. Instead, the court said that the city afforded Jim constitutionally compliant notice because it eventually told him, and they actually told him after he'd already cut the grass. They told him that his property had been under investigation the entire time. Having accepted that the notice provided was sufficient, the district court further concluded that fines at issue were not unconstitutional. $500 per day for tall grass. $500 a day. Now, an Institute for Justice attorney, Andrew Ward, says the Constitution protects against fines that are excessive or grossly disproportional to an offense. If $30,000 for tall grass in Florida is not excessive, it is hard to imagine what is. Yesterday's ruling is wrong on the law, and we will be appealing. And like I said, I understand the idea that if someone's got grass growing out of control in their yard, that's a problem. But you ask yourself realistically, what's reasonable here? What's reasonable? And like I said, many cities have actually got a Department of Public Works that goes out and mows grass. And they mow grass in the medians alongside the road and so on. And why not send a notice to homeowners that says, look, your grass is out of control. You're violating the law. You should know that. And then send them a second notice that says, here's the deal. If you don't cut your grass, we will, and we'll send you a bill. And then you send them a bill that is for the cost of cutting the grass, and maybe tack on a fine there too, but a $30,000 fine? It's crazy. Meanwhile, the Institute for Justice was founded in 1991. They were founded as the National Law Firm for Liberty. In addition to its litigation in Dunedin, it's challenging excessive fines elsewhere in Florida, as well as in Indiana, Georgia, Wisconsin, and New York City. Following Monday's ruling, the city of Dunedin also released a statement saying, in part, that the city remains committed to protecting the health and safety of our citizens and public and private investments in the community through fair and equitable policies consistent with the applicable law. The statement also confirmed that local officials have undertaken a thorough and careful analysis and review of its code enforcement policies and procedures to reflect modifications emphasizing compliance over enforcement. And so here's the bigger question, I guess, is let's suppose that you have the power to make laws for a municipality, and you want to make laws that make the place safer, better looking, increase property values, and so on. And in some of the articles I read, they said the problem with tall grass is it tends to breed vermin. You'll get rats and mice and all kinds of meadow voles and all kinds of things in the tall grass. Snakes, lizards, iguanas. And so they go, it's a safety issue. It is a safety issue besides the fact that it's just unsightly. And yeah, if neighborhoods were allowed to all get like this, property values would go down. So there is an interest in keeping the grass nice and clean and smooth and well cut. I understand that. But is the goal to raise money from violators, or is the goal simply to get compliance? And you have to look at something like this and go, okay, so someone's letting their grass grow and they haven't cut it. If they were home and refusing to cut it, you'd say, okay, that's one thing. If they're not home or it's an emergency or something else happened, you go, okay, let's take a look at what's happening and try to figure this out. Now, this guy left town and the grass didn't get cut. Now, if you leave town and you know you're going to be gone, you could make provisions for someone else to cut your grass. I saw one version of the story that suggested that he had talked to somebody about that and that fell through. Again, these things happen. But, again, the city's got the interest in doing this. But the question is the correct answer to fine the person $500 a day and just stand there and look at it, go, another $500, another $500, another $500. Is that what makes the most sense here? And so let's suppose the city doesn't have a municipal crew that cuts grass. Let's suppose they don't, okay? You could still be cheaper and get the best result by saying, let's hire a lawn crew. What's it cost for a lawn crew to come in and cut this grass for a day? $100, a couple $100? I don't know how big the yard was. Let's suppose it costs a couple $100 to mow that grass. Okay? Mow the grass, because that'll solve the problem. Number one, the grass will be cut, so everyone's happy. And send the bill along with some kind of fine on top of it to make sure they don't do that again. So let's suppose it costs $250 to mow the lawn. Send them a bill for $500. Go, yeah, we cut your grass for you. It costs $250, but there's a $250 fine. But the fine is for the one time of cutting the grass. A couple weeks goes by, it happens again. But the point is that this guy says he never even got notices until after he'd cut his grass. Oh, by the way, you now owe us $30,000. And one of the reasons that you're entitled to notice is so that you can change your behavior if necessary. So if you got notified and they say, hey, you understand that you're racking up fines right now $500 a day? You'd probably run out and cut your grass faster. Or you'd figure out some solution. And I know some people are going to say, Steve, it's, ignorance of the law is no excuse. It's your job to know the law. It's your job to abide by the law. Yes, it is. But the guy is 71 years old. His mother just died. He's got very, very important things to do. And his lawn slipped off the radar. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying, is the solution a $30,000 bill that he can't pay that's going to become a thing against his house that might cause his house to get foreclosed? Is that the answer? And that seems to me to be a little bit heavy-handed. So, again, a federal court on appeal will take a look at this. We'll see what happens. It's a fascinating concept, but it does boil down to the man was fined for letting his grass get too tall in Florida, and he was fined $30,000. And if he doesn't pay it, and he doesn't win the appeal, his house could get foreclosed upon. And I think there were easier solutions to this question. And I think that they chose the heavy-handed one for whatever reason. And it sounds a lot to me like maybe they're just trying to, raise some money. But again, I don't think that that's what municipalities should be in the business of. So there you go. Federal court upholds $30,000 fines for tall grass. J. Justin Wilson wrote it for the Institute of Justice. And Wayne, Caleb, Grant, and Mark all send it. Thanks a lot, guys. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Happiness can make an ordinary sight breathlessly beautiful.